Hi everyone, and welcome to part 9 of the DMC2 training series. In this video I'm going to go over some important machine maintenance and general tips for using the DMC2. So the first thing I want to mention is the superglue and tape trick. In your machine setup manual, it says to attach the aluminum bed on top of the steel one and only use this one to machine on. This is for two reasons. One is that it serves as a flat machine surface to easily bolt the vise down to, and the second is that it's semi-sacrificial and intended for mounting flat parts onto with tape so that you can machine right down to the bottom surface. The superglue and tape trick is commonly used to hold flat material that you can't hold in a vise, in case it's too large or would collapse and warp under the vise pressure. To do this, you need two clean flat surfaces, one being the bottom of your part and the other being the aluminum bed itself. These surfaces need to be cleaned of grease and oils, so it's a good idea to use acetone or rubbing alcohol to wipe them off. I use rubbing alcohol pads, which are very cheap and convenient. Once you have clean, dry surfaces, you need to firmly attach 2mm powder coating tape to both and press them in to adhere well. When that's done, apply an even distribution of superglue onto the bed and press down your sheet material firmly. If done correctly, this provides a strong bond against X and Y machining forces and sufficient strength in Z to hold the part down but still be removable afterwards. Another benefit to this is that for larger parts, you can cut them out entirely without the need for tabs to be removed later. You can cut right through into the tape, and if you accidentally go into the bed below, it's a soft material and not a big deal. The DMC2 is designed so that you don't use the steel bed below that comes with it to cut. You only use it in this way with a larger sacrificial aluminum bed on top. You can still attach the vise directly to the main steel bed below if you need to, in case you're machining a tall part and need the extra height clearance. Remember, you do need to machine the top surface of this aluminum plate down the first time you set up your machine. This makes sure it's perfectly parallel to the X and Y axes. To do this, you only need to skim probably a few tenths of a millimeter off the top, doing a facing operation. As you machine other jobs and occasionally might accidentally poke through to the bed, you can always skim another millimeter or so off the top. Of course, you can also entirely replace this sheet of aluminum, for example with a custom jig or fixture plate as well, and swap them out as needed. You also need to machine the holes in place for the dowel pins and threaded holes for mounting your vise. This has to be done by you on your machine to ensure that the dowel pins are in the correct place to hold the vise in perfectly straight, so that when you take it off and put it back on, you don't ever need to re-sweep it in with a dial indicator, which is very convenient. The next thing I'd like to talk about is coolant. Coolant is obviously very important for many reasons, and you should always have extra on hand. The machine very quickly atomizes coolant if it hits the high RPM end mill and collet nut, and this causes water in the coolant to evaporate easily, which changes its concentration over time. Typically, I use synthetic milling or general milling coolant as concentrate. The concentrate will have a mix ratio on it, which you add with distilled water to get the desired mix. Because of the evaporation, you should buy a refractometer to monitor your coolant system. A refractometer is very cheap and will reveal the concentration of the coolant very easily. It works by wetting the glass on top and looking through the eyepiece to see a Brix reading. Put plain water on first and see what your Brix value is. It should be 0 or close to 0. Now mix your coolant at the appropriate ratio in a bucket and take a few drops and put it on the glass of the refractometer to read the Brix value. Take note of this value. This is your ideal value for your mixed coolant. As you use the machine, water will evaporate, leaving behind more concentrated coolant, and this causes stickiness and can sometimes cause a cracking, damage to plastic parts in extreme situations. Having too much water in the system can lead to poor cutting performance and even rusting. You should check the Brix reading every day before you prepare to cut and add water or concentrate as needed. You should replace the coolant entirely if you leave the machine sitting for too long, because it can go bad and turn into an unpleasant syrup and harbor bacteria. It is a good idea to have a cover over your machine coolant to avoid excessive evaporation, but make sure you check inside every so often to clean out any chips that make their way inside. Also be sure to use distilled water only to mix coolant, since tap water can have extra minerals that don't evaporate out, and then build up over time as you top up with water and coolant, damaging the coolant and causing it to not do its job properly and potentially cause machining issues. For flood coolant, I use Qualichem Q-Cool 355D. I had bad experiences with other no-name coolants before that would evaporate too fast or smell really bad and cause sinus irritation. I spoke to a professional coolant supplier and they recommended Qualichem 335D, specifically for the DMC2. This coolant is very affordable, it's easy to purchase, it's non-irritating if you get it on your skin or breathe over it too much, and generally very ideal for machines that might sit for a while in a garage and not develop bacteria or go bad. It has a fairly neutral pH and no harsh chemicals inside. I specifically asked Qualichem for a coolant that I knew many people would be using indoors, in small garages or poorly ventilated areas, since larger machine shops typically have entire coolant management systems and don't have to worry about these problems. Speaking of the coolant system, the chips that are generated by the machine are stored in the chip pan below, where they are separated from the coolant that makes its way back down into the reservoir. You should empty this every day by taking out the tray and shaking it off. Before doing this, spray down the inside of the machine with coolant, or wipe it with a brush to get everything into the pan. You do need to watch the rail covers and ball screw covers especially to make sure that they don't fill with chips, and brush them down as necessary. It's a very good practice to always clean off the top of the rail covers after every job, because if chips sit on top, they prevent the covers from completely compressing and can cause the Y-axis to jam and trigger an e-stop. I use keyboard cleaning brushes to do this, which work very well. Another maintenance point on the machine is the rail and ball screw lubrication. All of the components that need lubrication are already connected to the oil manifold at the back, which is fed from a hand pump below. You need to fill the pump with lubricant and prime the system to ensure that lube gets everywhere it needs to be. Running the machine without lube can cause excessive wear, and as you run the machine you need to occasionally pump more lubricant as it drips off, usually every few days of running, or when you see the X-axis rails getting dry since they are the most exposed. For lubricant, you can buy proper machine weight oil, but what also works well is very thick gear oil, something with a high viscosity number. Automotive differential oil works well and is thick enough that it flows through the lubricant lines but sticks to surfaces and resists dripping, and it also doesn't clog with chips like a thicker grease does. It's better to use too much lubricant than to have not enough and risk damaging the machine. Excess lubricant just makes its way into your coolant bucket and doesn't harm anything, but it's not a good idea to let too much accumulate in your reservoir. One last fairly advanced tip I'm going to leave you with is dealing with runout. Runout is when the tool mounted in your spindle is not truly straight, so when the spindle rotates, the tip of the tool is swinging around in a circle. The spindle itself is precision ground to a 0.002 mm runout tolerance, so any runout more than that is likely due to the spring collet being poor quality or dirty. To check runout, you need to get a dial indicator and place it against the tip of your end mill when it's normally installed. Look at the high spots as each flute passes by and note them down. You can see here that this end mill is sitting a little bit off from the center line of the spindle, by under 1/1000th of an inch. Now I can temporarily fix this if I loosen the collet and gently bang the end mill into place without snapping it, but this is more a guess and check game if you're really in a pinch. There are two big problems with having excessive runout. The first is that when you're doing precision work, it's almost impossible to hit your tolerances. When the end mill is rotating, for example with a 4mm end mill with 0.02mm of runout, it effectively becomes a 4.02mm end mill and leaves a larger 4.02mm path anywhere it goes, so you're overcutting and need to fix this or compensate in cam by changing your tool diameter. But this is just putting a band-aid on the problem and not actually fixing it. The second major problem is when you're doing small cuts with fragile tools. If you check your chip per tooth in cam and have a 0.02mm chip load for example, but you also have a 0.02mm runout, that means your tool is taking a 0.04mm chip load on one tooth, and at the other side of the tool taking zero load and not even cutting. Your tool is taking twice the intended cutting load, wearing down only one flute, and is cutting horribly imbalanced, and this is a quick way to damage the tool, or break it off entirely if it's very small and fragile. So what is the solution with runout? Well, really you just need to buy precision ground, low runout spring collets. The collets that ship with the DMC2 are fairly average and usually have under 0.01mm of runout, which is probably good enough for most people, but they definitely are not in the same league as very high-end precision ground collets. You can find these online from reputable suppliers, and they cost about $20 a piece, so if you know you need a few particular sizes, it's worth buying those few. If you're not doing extremely small precision work, then the collets that come with the DMC2 are probably fine for you. I can typically machine things to within 0.01mm tolerances with these collets, as you can see in my other videos. So that's all I have to share for now. I hope you found this all very helpful and informative. This is the last video in the DMC2 training series for now, and if I've missed any important details, feel free to let me know. I may upload another episode someday in the future if I compile a large number of additional tips or important information that I may have missed. Be sure to check out the other videos for reel cutting examples and various other machining projects on the DMC2. And as always, thanks for watching.